truth. Remedy Revolution is here for you. Ooh. And now here's your host, Aaron Page.
All interviews presented on the Remedy Revolution podcast are designed to provide information and inspiration only. Guests of the podcast may present opinions and anecdotes which are solely their own. And as always, before beginning any treatment protocol, please consult with your preferred medical provider. Hey everyone, welcome to the Remedy Revolution. My name is Erin, and today's guest is someone who I came across very recently, but I'm really excited to bring her to the show. She is known as the Holistic Beauty Coach. You can find her on Instagram. This is the lovely Amanda Porta. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Erin. So nice to meet you.
Yeah, so today we are going to talk about something that I know is very near and dear to you, but I also think is such an important topic to discuss. You know, I grew up in Southern California, and there's a huge emphasis, especially in Hollywood, on the idea of having to maintain a perfect image, if you will. And unfortunately, this is most detrimental, in my opinion, to the young women in our society. And it does become a very difficult issue. You know, I know many girls in my high school, for example, who their fathers would pay for plastic surgery or implants as their graduation present. And so we're going to talk a little bit about breast implants, breast implant illness, BII, which you may or may not have heard of. I know it's, been more prevalent in the media, but I don't think it gets enough press. So would you tell us a little bit about your journey with breast implant illness and how that all began for you?
Sure. I actually got breast implants in 2003. My first set was saline, and I got it because I had a very minor chest deformity where my breast just didn't develop. I was almost flat, really. And so to most people, you couldn't tell. I felt like it was going to cause an issue when I had children. And at the time, I thought I was going to have 5. And so I ideally kind of like wanted to fix it if I could. And I did try a surgery, didn't really do much. And so then, of course, the plastic surgeon says, well, we can just put an implant in, and that's going to push the tissue out and give you a normal breast. And I never really was down with it. Like, I remember thinking, like, this is going to look so strange in the shower to look down and see something that doesn't belong. I'm very natural anyway. But like you say, there's a pressure. Just for me, it was just to kind of feel normal like everyone else. So I got them. I immediately got something called capsular contracture, where in layman's term, the breast implant kind of hardens, and knew that I had to get it replaced the next year. For me, like, it never softened up. So that's 2 surgeries now in the matter of 1 year. And, they don't tell you these things. They don't tell you that can happen. And at 25 or whatever I was at the time, you think you're invincible. And they don't share with you any really of the risks. Didn't know that these could cause hormonal disruption. I didn't know that they could cause autoimmune. And quite frankly, even if you had said that to me at the time, I probably would have said, well, I don't have any autoimmune in my family. I had girlfriends with them already, most of my girlfriends, in fact. None of them were having any issues. So I got them. I had them for a year. At that year point, we decided to swap them out. I had to go to another plastic surgeon who recommended silicone. And that's a really important part of my story, because at this time, silicone breast implants were actually banned from the market. I don't even know if people know that. There was actually a moratorium on them for a period of time because so many women were sick. And though I didn't keep up on any of that, I did have the knowledge at the time to say to my surgeon, wait a minute, isn't silicone bad? He responded, no, I'm actually conducting studies on this. They're new and improved. They're more durable than ever. And what he was really speaking to was women who had had ruptures. But you can get sick from your breast implants like I did. I never had a rupture. They were fully intact when they came out. So I did get those breast implants removed with silicone in 2004. And I started experiencing hormonal issues within about 9 months. Really perimenopausal symptoms. And again, I was only in my mid-20s. Everything from issues, sleeping at night sweats. I had a ruptured ovarian cyst that landed me in the hospital for 3 days. Again, you never would have correlated at the time, but I did have the common sense to go to the gynecologist and say, something's not right. I'm experiencing all of these different things. To which she said, well, this is your normal. And I said, no, it's not normal. That's why I'm here visiting you today. And so I do realize that, I've been being gaslit now for over 20 years. I didn't go to the doctor often enough, to really understand what medical gaslighting was at that time. And now we hear about it so often, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you brought up an important point. So one of the things that I always say is that we have swapped out this term common for this term normal. And what is common nowadays does not necessarily mean normal. And so I think a lot of doctors, unknowingly or unwittingly mislead a lot of their patients by using that term normal, because what's common, even in lab test results or things like that, what's common is not always normal. So what was it? What was the turning point for you? What really made you correlate the implants with the symptoms that you had been experiencing? And what was that journey like for you?
Well, it would take another 7.5 years. So it was 7.5 years into them that it took a fender bender, a little car accident. Someone hit me from behind, and then a really emotional event in my life. Because this whole time, what I realize now that I wouldn't have realized at the time, my poor immune system was fighting these things. And it was just going to take, again, if we're looking at the body holistically, we have to take into consideration, right? Physical, emotional, all of the things. It just took that car accident followed by the emotional stressor, I believe, to just say, all right, we give up. And I had 40 symptoms overnight, starting with an episode of vertigo I had never experienced before. And I just never felt right again after that. And that was about December 2012, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And a feeling in my chest, I kept rubbing it. I finally went to the doctor, and I never go to the doctor. Like I said, I mean, it was very isolated situations, like the hormonal stuff in my 20s. I probably didn't even go to a doctor other than my annuals. Again, I never really get sick.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it was a nagging feeling that I felt like I had to go and talk to someone. And I said, is this like what bronchitis maybe feels like? And she listened, and she said, no, this is what I would call pleurisy. So that was a first diagnosis. And I like to say that because when I talk about it online, a lot of women say, oh my gosh, that was my first diagnosis too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you get this better? Oh, it'll just get better on its own. But see, 4 months later, I was still feeling it. And I had just gone to Scottsdale on vacation where it's really dry. I thought that would help.
Mm-hmm.
And actually it was the worst. The vertigo felt worse. Now I had been on an airplane. When I got home from that, I said, I'm going to the ER because
Mm-hmm.
now it's 4 months of this. I'm dizzy again. This doesn't feel right. I went to the ER on a Sunday. They took a whole battery of tests. And it was interesting because the head of the ER kept taking my pulse and having me walk the corridor. And after, I don't know, 10 times of this, I said, what are we doing here? And he said, I'm looking at you and you look healthy. I had just gotten back from Scottsdale. I was tan. I didn't have all the inflammation yet. So I did still, I think, look healthy,
Mm-hmm.
which is another problem I hear all the time. If you look too good, well, then they don't really take you seriously either.
Right.
And so he said, but when I take your pulse, it's as if you're almost dead. And I said, well, what does that mean? And then I heard one of the technicians say, take her D-dimer count. And so the D-dimer can correlate with a potential stroke.
Right.
Then it started registering to me, oh my gosh, I just got off an airplane. Is this what it is? And so, well, thank goodness I'm at a hospital. And then after, I think it was an MRI I took, nope, everything looks fine. But it prompted this emergency room doctor to call my primary care and say, I don't know your patient, but you need to see her.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that week, go back to see her. And then she was calling what I was experiencing costochondritis, which is an inflammation of the chest wall.
Mm-hmm.
And she was correlating it back to this minor fender bender. But like I was saying to her, that doesn't really make sense because it wasn't a big deal accident. Like, oh, well, your seatbelt goes across your chest. I even did go to my plastic surgeon and did
Hmm.
say, did something happen with the breast implants in my accident? And he gave me an exam. He said, no, everything's great. Never bringing up any issue at all. So I would go on to have 40 symptoms, everything from thyroid dysfunction, hormonal dysfunction, inflammation up to about 57 pounds, I think, at the most. My vision was impaired. My hair was falling out. I lost all the color in my skin because I'm more olive toned.
Hmm.
Circulation. My lymphatic system was not working properly, which was meaning I was holding on to toxins, and therefore that causes inflammation and it causes autoimmune symptoms. All of this makes sense to me now, but it wasn't making sense to any of the Western medicine doctors I was seeing. And I think that did more harm to me than anything
Hmm.
because their lack of knowledge or lack of taking it seriously was really, scaring me because I didn't know really where else to turn. And ended up spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, when all was said and done over this 7.5 year period.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such a huge challenge, right? Obviously, we would hope that all of our doctors are in it for our best interests as their patients. But that leads to a bigger conversation, I think, of this whole idea of really truly informed consent, understanding what it is that you're going to do to your body, and particularly in our young women, when we're talking about something that, in your case had lifelong implications, really, 20 plus years. And so, I think the bigger conversation here might, circle around the idea of the the doctors really giving true informed consent. And also, you know, what is it about, maybe obviously you were involved in health and beauty industry for a long period of time, but what is it about some of these doctors that they don't necessarily want to recognize that the things that they are doing could potentially be causing harm to their patients? Where does that come from, do you think?
Well, it's interesting to me, and I have so many different ways I've kind of looked at this and analyzed it because at the end of the day, we do know, right? The doctors do take a Hippocratic oath to do no harm. And I do not think anybody's intentionally trying to harm patients or wanting that to be. But we're jumping around a little, so I hope that I can cover everything.
It's okay.
But when I started really putting the puzzle pieces together, and that would have been December of 2018, and it wasn't from a Western medicine doctor, and it wasn't from a plastic surgeon. It was a new colonic practitioner I went to, and she just so happened to have had the experience of seeing. I think she said she had 11 patients in a short that year have the same illness, get them out, and get better. And she just had the wherewithal and to tell me and to say something. She didn't know how I was going to react to it. And I see that now. Women get very defensive. And I know that I was defensive at the time. She said, you know what I think is wrong with you? I think it's your breast implants. And I said, oh, did you see what I do for a living? I've worked in this industry because now at this point, I didn't mention earlier, I started working in plastic surgery because
Mhm.
I help other women to feel better about themselves.
Right.
And really enjoyed my time working with some really great plastic surgeons. But at the time I wasn't aware of the toxins in the implants and Botox being as toxic as it is and all of these things because I wasn't aware enough at the time.
Hmm.
So when this colonic practitioner said it, I was in denial. I said, I've never heard of this before. She said, you should get into some of these online support chats. And the first one I got into, Erin, it was 150,000 women. And this was like right around Christmas. I had some downtime, so I had time to read. And I know how I felt at the time. I'm thinking, I'm never going to get better. Because when you're sick every day for 7.5 years, it really takes a toll on you. And you start to, even though I always had hope, I was always hopeful. I still thought if they can't figure it out, it's only going to get worse and worse. And it was getting worse. I kept saying to my mom, I don't feel like any system in my body is working optimally.
Mm.
And that is true. They weren't working optimally.
Right.
And so I started reading post after post on Facebook. So on Facebook, not from the industry that I was working in, I had to learn from social media what was wrong. And every post sounded just like me. I'm having a hard time walking up a flight of stairs. I can't breathe well. My hair is falling out. I feel like I'm going to die. Like I kept saying that. And that's a horrible thing to say. And I thought to myself, like, why do women say that? I still don't know the answer. And so when I started consulting with the first few doctors, they were like many of these doctors today. This is not your problem. This is a social media phenomena. Don't listen to these women, Amanda. And in that moment, I was trusting my intuition because it's strong anyway. And it finally clicked. I'm like, I've tried everything else. I'm willing to get these out. I've never been into the vanity of it. I just wanted to correct the issue I had. And if it meant taking these out and going just right back to how it was before, I'll take it because I felt so bad. I didn't care what it looked like. I said, just, they said, no, you're not going to be happy with the way it looks. We're not going to take them out. I almost got in an argument with one of them there in his office. And I said, you let me worry about what it's going to look like because I can't feel like this. There was no consideration of how I was feeling. It was only the emphasis on how it was looking.
Mm-hmm.
And I've thought about it. I'm a US advocate now for breast implant illness. I've talked with the advocates many times. I'm like, what do you think it is that some of these surgeons, they continue to tell women that this isn't real? The receptionists, when they answer the phones at these offices, will tell women if they're trying to make an appointment and bring up breast implant illness, they'll say, oh, that's not real. This has been around for over 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know how many women are? So I'm almost thinking it's a level of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't have that level of awareness yet, it's not in your awareness. You know what I mean? Like when people talked about, I know it's funny, chemtrails.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what are they talking about? There's things going on in the sky, but now we know that it's real, right? So I don't think it's in their awareness yet. That's what I think. And also, of course, I would imagine if it were true, and I say this all the time, doctors don't tell women it's not, because if you find out one day it is, can you imagine? Like, I know I would feel so guilty. I mean, I think that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I don't want to ever feel like I'm complicit in any of this. I figured it out. I said to myself, I will never work in this industry in the capacity of being in an office that offers breast implants. And I will try to do better and help as many women as I can and support them if they were feeling like me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting because your journey in a lot of ways parallels mine and my son's journey with Lyme disease and his diagnosis with PANS. And, you know, at the time, over 10 years ago, there was not a lot of information. And so we as moms had to band together. And it also happened to be on Facebook where we started chatting and connecting and really talking to each other about what treatments were working, what treatments were not, because we were also being gaslit by the medical community and told, well, the only treatments are antibiotics for life, antipsychotics or SSRIs or IVIG, which are all in my mind were not acceptable treatments for my child. And so, you know, I knew there had to be an alternative path. And fortunately, I was able to find that path through these other moms. So I can really empathize and appreciate your story because in so many ways, there are so many parallels there. And you're right. I do think it's a blind spot for a lot of providers, and it's unfortunate that it is such. But sometimes when the tools are not available within their toolkit, they don't see this as a potential problem and they don't understand the potential solutions outside of that, you know, very limited toolkit.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I will say, though, I wanted to say this, though. I ended up helping the surgeon who removed mine for 3.5 years, just removing implants from women. And I know because as an advocate, I do a monthly surgeon call with some of the busiest explant surgeons around the country and even outside of the US, all just trying to talk and think of solutions and share experiences just to do better. And so once you start removing enough implants of women who've been sick and seeing the symptoms improve and seeing the similarities in all of them, you start getting it. So I also say, like, the doctors who are saying that it's not real, you just haven't seen it with your own eyes yet.
Right.
Because it's happening. And we were even doing a study, and so we were keeping track of all of it. And in my experience, I have yet to work with a patient who hasn't gotten either completely better or most of their symptoms have resolved. I'm not saying they don't exist, but I've never worked with a woman who says it didn't help at all. And, it's only just one of the many things that are going on possibly too in a human body. You've also got mold, you've got potential of Lyme, and all these other things that can be triggered by the low immunity that the breast implant. So I always say it's never going to be a bad thing removing a medical device that has over 40 highly toxic chemicals and heavy metals. It can never be a bad thing.
Absolutely. So talk to us about your explant journey. So once you got to that place, once you realized, okay, this could be the potential problem, and I'm willing to go for it. What did those conversations look like? I know you alluded to it a little bit, but and how did you eventually come to settle on a surgeon who was going to be able to help you?
Yeah, like I said, the first few were not great. And I hear it all the time from women. My following on Instagram, I get a lot of feedback from them. Like I said, it was the denial, the continued gaslighting, which again then is so horrible for a patient, because now I actually had hope. I was like, and I'm ready to do this. That's a huge part of this, is getting to the point where you're like, I'm willing to take a chance and get these out. It's, you have to be very brave to do that. And then if you're not getting any support, but I wasn't going to let them deter me, because I already knew there has to be something, or at least I was thinking it's going to improve most of my symptoms. So it was after, I think, the second or third consult, I just remember praying for the first time I think I had ever prayed in my life. And I was I guess I was surrendering. I had never surrendered before, but I was at my wit's end. I just remember being on my knees in my bedroom. And I just said, God, if you find me a surgeon who will remove these, I will help other women. I'll do anything. Just please, I need to feel better. And it was like 2 days later, I Googled again, explant surgeon Beverly Hills. I thought it was interesting that I had worked in Beverly Hills and was living here, because that is the beauty plastic surgery capital of the world. And I was really hoping they would be more in tune with this, but it seems like they were gaslighting me even more than other surgeons may have. So two or 3 days later, a surgeon popped up, and I just said to myself, okay, he's probably going to have the same reaction as these other ones, but I'm going to take a chance. And the experience was totally different. He said, after listening to my whole story, why don't we take these out and leave them out? And I was just so flabbergasted that he said that. I said, great. When can we do it? And he said, I can get you in 3 weeks. I said, done. Didn't even have a lot of time to get ready. Didn't even know enough about preparing my body at the time. I had been studying with German naturopaths, so I was really getting a great understanding of the human body, but I hadn't gotten my health coaching certification at that point. And I actually kind of just wanted to see, can the human body just kind of return to homeostasis on its own? I was hoping I wasn't going to have to take thyroid medication and things. So I went for that surgery. I didn't have my family here because it was such short notice. I had some girlfriends who helped me. I remember just crying the morning of. It was really emotional, because I even had the staff saying, you're going to get better today. And that was so overwhelming to me. I couldn't believe it, because you have to remember, I was just being told again and again and again for 7.5 years, there's nothing wrong with you. It's not your breast implants. So I just remember looking at them. It was like, I say this a lot, like being in the Twilight Zone. I was like, what? You've seen this before? They're like, oh yeah, honey, this happens a lot. I'm like, a lot? I've never, see, it wasn't in my awareness I, working in the industry all that time, never had a woman come into our office complaining, never participated in that surgery because they were going to other practitioners, rheumatologists and gynecologists. They didn't know what it was either, probably. So I got them out. It really wasn't it wasn't painful. My poor little body just wanted to sleep for the first 4 days because it was so tired. I wasn't sleeping well for all of those years. I started walking. The extra weight, I had gained about 12 pounds of just weight from the breast implants. It would never budge. The inflammation started going away. The color came back in my skin. After a month, once everything was healed, I started doing infrared sauna. I was eating anti-inflammatory. My hair stopped falling out almost immediately. My vision improved. I still have to wear glasses if I'm doing something like this or reading, but I'm also getting older. So that makes sense. I felt myself again. And I would say it took about a year and a half for my thyroid to totally balance, my hormones, and for me to feel like this is what I felt like before.
Yeah, I think that's such a powerful story. And thank you for sharing that. I'm interested to, you talked a little bit about it, but I know a lot of women do go into this, plastic surgery and implants because there's a certain emotional piece that we feel like, we have to reach this certain aesthetic in order to fit in or to stand out, even in a lot of ways too. So there's definitely this very close correlation between the emotional component and self-esteem, if you will, and all of these procedures. So what was that like for you, and how did you overcome any of the mental and emotional, traumas, if you will, after that?
Yeah. And I always tell women, because I help women prepare for their surgery and I help them in the weeks after it. I always say, even if, let's say, you're not sick or you are sick, women get them out for a variety of different reasons. Even if you're going to be happy that they're out because they were making you sick, like me, there is still a period of time to get used to this new you. I remember catching my reflection at the grocery store for the first time. This is just what I thought to myself. I thought, I no longer identify as a large breasted woman, right? I have like a B cup now, which fits my body better. I'm happy. I never was into big breasts. I was never into that look. So I'm so happy. It was interesting because when they came out, the right one was amazing. And the left one over my heart, and I do seem to hear this a lot, that women will have sometimes a harder time with the healing on the left side.
Mhm.
I don't know why. I had a bit of we call it contour deformity in plastic surgery, but a bit of a divot from the breast implant on the left side. It happens. It's not the surgeon's fault. It can just happen. So I had to have kind of a big divot on the left side for a year and a half. And to be quite honest, I didn't even want to fix it because I just thought, I just don't want any more surgery and I just want to be happy with it. And to my surprise, it didn't bother me at all. It really didn't. But I did talk to the former plastic surgeon about possibly doing a little fat transfer because my only hesitation was knowing that I was going to be a very big voice in this, being a woman who's worked in the industry as long as I have, et cetera, and being a US advocate. And I didn't feel like it was authentic to be telling women and supporting and encouraging them if I was walking around and didn't feel like I wanted to show them because I didn't want to scare them that could happen to them. I let my body completely detox because, as we know, toxins reside in the fat. So I would have never wanted to do the fat transfer at the time of explant. And I think that the breast should totally heal for a while. And now you would never know. I actually do think that worked like a charm. I'm not saying that I don't know that really long-term studies on it. I pray that it's safe, but it was just a little bit. And I'm so happy with mine. And those first few surgeons, they literally said to me, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be deformed. And they were saying it to somebody who already had been through that, which is, again, like so horrible. And can you imagine if I had listened to them? And because of vanity, left them in. But that's what women do all the time because they scare them into leaving them in and they stay sick. My whole life changed. And now I'm the happiest. They're perfect. They're beautiful. And I say that too, though, a little with hesitation because I know not every woman has that experience. And sometimes, it hasn't turned out as well. And my heart breaks for those women. My heart breaks for the women who really like their implants.
Mm-hmm.
There are women who really, really like them. It really did a lot. They never improved my self-esteem. I was already really confident. In fact, it hindered it probably. I covered them up all the time. I never wore a bathing suit during those years. So yeah, but I do tell all women, you really do have to do some emotional work around it before you remove them. It's really, really important for whatever your reasoning is, because it's different. You do feel different afterwards.
Sure, absolutely. I think that's hugely important too, is to recognize that, women make these choices for a reason, and so we don't necessarily have to talk them out of that choice without giving them support. So I think it's really important that they feel supported mentally, emotionally, spiritually, as well as physically. So I
to judge them, and I'm not here to say, oh my gosh, everyone's going to get sick, get them off the market. I've always maintained the same messaging, which is I just want to help support women who had the same reaction to them that I do, to give them hope, to empower them, all the things.
Absolutely. I love what you do. I think it's so important. Just a question, and I don't know if this is something that you're familiar with, but do you know if there's an increased risk in things like cancers, breast cancers with implants at all?
Well, in 2022, September, there was a correlation the FDA announced with squamous cell carcinoma and breast of a woman who had been explanted, which, as we know, is a very dangerous cancer. And there have been other cases since. I don't think that we know necessarily all the risk, but I will say, and I talk about this a lot, and I will probably get criticism for it. And I know as advocates, we do. Women who get breast implants for reconstruction after breast cancer, very upset when we talk about it because they feel like they needed to do that. That was their only option. I respect that. I also know there's a lot of pressure from the medical community when you get a diagnosis like that to just put the implants in so you feel womanly still, even though there are other options like flat closure. If you've just battled breast cancer, and when I say it like this to people, it will download and they'll be like, oh my God, your poor immune system has just fought one of the toughest battles of your life. So to fight that, and you hope conquer it, and to put in a medical device that has highly toxic chemicals in them, heavy metals that we know impair the immune system, because I even found an article in the New York Times from 1993 that states that, and disrupts hormones and can make vitamin D levels lower, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just saying it worries me for those vulnerable patients. That's all. I just want them to know and be aware. Again, informed consent. You get to do what you choose. But
Yeah, absolutely.
That bothers me a lot. But we are seeing a lot younger women with breast cancer. Now, there are a million toxins in the world, but a lot of young women also have breast implants, right?
So, as obviously, from my understanding, the incidences of implants has increased. Also, the incidence of explants has increased. Yeah. And now we're at this place where it's becoming a little bit more of a conversation in the media, a little bit more of a conversation with some of the celebrities who've kind of talked about it. What would you say the awareness is now surrounding breast implant illness? Do you think the vast majority of women going into the implants know about it or of it, or is it still something that nobody wants to talk about?
It's still, to my surprise. I mean, yes, the awareness is getting out there more. We really appreciate the celebrities who have spoken out, because there have been some that have removed them and don't wish to speak out. Danica Patrick has been tremendous, and others. I think it's such a beautiful thing to watch because literally it's taken this army of women. My advocates who came before me are amazing. One of them, Laura Bowden, has been fighting this battle for the last 30 years. We took to social media because, again, that's how I found out about it. And I worked in the industry and didn't know a thing. And it's been organic. Like, I know my Instagram is the second largest breast implant illness account on Instagram, but it's been so organic. I do talk about other things, like toxins and things that the FDA approves and children's cereal and candies, which is shocking. So I don't just talk about that because then I would lose some of my audience. And I have a lot of men now following. It's beautiful. Like, even patients, they say, oh, my husband started following you, and he tells all of his coworkers about it in case their wives have implants. It's really cool. And it's almost been, like I say, like a game of telephone. It's like an operator or telephone, because the media still doesn't report on it as they should, or doesn't tell like the whole story. Like People magazine, hey, love them. They always report on celebrities taking their breast implants out. But I'm like, why isn't anyone asking why all of these women are suddenly getting sick, right? So we've all tried, different ways of getting the word out there. I tell a funny story about having to get a tow. My car was brand new, but it needed to be towed. And I got in the car with the tow truck guy. I said, how long do we have? He said, I don't know, 15 minutes. I said, great, let's talk about breast implants. It was like, okay. But the beautiful part was, by the end of the ride, he said, you know what? My wife doesn't have breast implants. But he said, thank you so much for sharing this with me, because now I'm going to go and tell more people about it. And so I just said that to myself. That's why I do all the podcasts I do. If the media doesn't want to report it, and I know that there's a group of doctors who have even called and threatened media outlets when they are going to roll stories, I just said to myself, I'll get on every podcast I can then, because we are going to get the word out and we're not going to stop. And the women who I work with on a daily basis, the advocates, they're so brave and so amazing. And we all kind of have the same feeling that God's protecting us. And he's just made it work. I mean, I said to him, I made a deal with him. If you get me better, I will promise to help women. And I have every day for the last, it will be 5 years in a couple of weeks that I've had him out.
Absolutely. And Amanda, you are such a wonderful and fierce advocate for these women. And I am quite certain that they are very grateful to have you on their team. I want to pivot a little bit because I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you talk about with natural health and natural beauty, which I think plays into this, right? Because if we're not going to go into plastic surgery, what are some of the alternatives? So maybe you could give us a couple of top tips for different products or things that we could utilize in order to enhance our own natural beauty, but without, obviously harming ourselves and our immune system.
Right. Well, so one thing I always tell people, and they don't know, the lymphatic system to me is my favorite system. It's so important. It carries out disease and toxins. So the fact that we're not talking about more, it's starting to become more of the conversation now, which is great. But the fact that we didn't for so long doesn't make any sense to me. Blood flow is what prevents stagnation and what prevents aging, right? So like when you go for a nice hike or a run or a walk and you've got flushed cheeks, right? That's blood flow. So anything that stagnates, like in my situation, and I see a lot of this, breast implants acted almost like in a dam, right? When you have debris clogging up the flow. I mean, as humans, we're mostly water. And so it stagnated my normal water and energy flow. And we talk about that a lot with Chinese medicine. So that's why when women get their breast implants out, they immediately feel like they can breathe better. I feel like they get more oxygen to their brain. The skin, their color comes back. They lose weight because it's not stagnated. And so the toxins aren't building up. So same thing when it came to Botox. I started thinking to myself, okay, I did Botox for many, many years. I never really did filler. But I did notice the filler in patients, and like when I would see celebrities do it, I felt like they started looking very inflamed and puffy.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it looked good, which would kind of make sense. Again, I do think it's very inflammatory, and inflammation causes aging. That's why when I was sick, I felt like I was aging overnight because of all the inflammation from the breast implants.
Mm-hmm.
So getting rid of inflammation. I also eat an anti-inflammatory diet, removing things like filler, not doing them, the implants. That's just going to help. I do feel like I'm almost aging backwards. Like I do definitely look younger. And even the plastic surgeons have said that to me since getting them out. The Botox, I just don't agree with because, and again, I did it for many years. I think you need to work your muscles in your face, just like your body, right? I'm not into and the freezing of it. I want to look natural. I want to have expression. And so gua sha facials, buccal facials, it's your fascia. When your fascia is not healthy, that's when the adherence can cause what looks like wrinkles. So castor oil, I love castor oil. It's one of my favorite things. I put castor oil all over my face at night. And it just makes a difference. One of my girlfriends started doing it because I told her to. And she's like, I really am liking the way this looks. I said, right? Like it does, what it does for your liver is tremendous.
Right.
I sleep better. My digestion immediately improves. So, I mean, I had the download in 2012 that we were going to get back to holistic medicine. I was trying to create more holistic beauty back then, but that's right when I was sick. I created a non-toxic skincare line in glass at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why more people don't. They'll create a non-toxic skincare line, but then they'll put it in plastic, which is totally redundant to me. I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm creating a breast balm for women that not only heals their scars post-surgery, but also encourages them to massage their breasts each night and the lymph breasts. You can also put castor oil on your breasts. It's tremendous for it. So those are some of my basic tips. But yeah, keeping your lymphatic system healthy, which there in part will keep your circulation healthier. Blood flow. That's where it's at.
Absolutely. There's a local place here where it's these two sisters and they do acufacials. So essentially they do acupuncture on the face. I think it's on it might be on my personal Instagram, but anyway, I had I don't know, 100 needles in my face.
Yep.
And then they do the gua sha techniques as well. Lots of natural products, things that they make themselves. And I will tell you, when I was doing that regularly, I haven't been in a while, but when I was doing that regularly, people would tell me frequently that I was aging backwards, that I looked much younger. And I absolutely agree. I think definitely it had to do with moving the lymphatic system and increasing the blood flow. So 100%. It took away all of the lines. I mean, I had a few lines here. I mean, I still have my little 11s here, but that's life.
That's life. And microcurrent is great too. I really do try to post all about the holistic facials just as much as the breast implant stuff, just so we mix it up a little bit and encourage women, because I also knew that. I said, well, if you're taking your breast implants out, most likely these women are not going to want to do the injectables anymore and not wanting to put medical grade skincare, which for me just caused inflammation. So I wanted to, again, kind of show them see, look, I'm doing okay. I thought that something kind of catastrophic was going to happen after stopping the Botox, even more than removing the breast implants. And I can say for anybody else considering stopping, I really can't even tell a difference. I prefer it. I have more movement in my face. It looks great. So I don't be scared.
Absolutely. I think more and more women are really coming around to realize that put the things that we put on our bodies is just as important as the things that we put in our bodies. And those things are really, contributing to our health and the lack thereof. So you mentioned one thing before about endocrine disruptors. And one thing I have found that a lot of women don't really know or understand is the idea of deodorant. And so I did see you had a post or two on Instagram. Maybe you could talk a little bit to people that are perhaps still utilizing, traditional deodorants. Maybe they're aluminum free, but they might be antiperspirant or things like that, which then impedes that lymphatic flow, like you were talking about.
Yeah. And our underarms, our main lymph ports at the clavicle, underarms, and pelvis. I cited the article in that post. It's your underarms that dump a lot of the toxins. In fact, we noticed because I had thermography done before my explant surgery, and I noticed that all three areas were very red and inflamed. So I posted my thermography photos and I asked other women, are you sweating much with breast implants? And so many said, now that you mention it, I'm not. And we also noticed that with saline implants in particular, patients complain of more pain in the underarm area when they're removed. Again, we don't know why. I'm just saying to myself, is it because they're kind of lighter? They're not as dense as silicone, so they ride up there more, and you have so many lymph nodes in your underarms. It's, impairing them somehow. So I know for me, when I was going through the whole journey, I hired a woman who was, again, we didn't know it was a breast implant. She just said, let's get you healthy. And so she started teaching me very basic ways, taught me about water. Because at the time, I don't know if I was drinking tap water, but I wasn't aware of how dangerous it was.
Mm-hmm.
Fluoride in toothpaste. I didn't know that what fluoride did to the human body. So I had to learn all of that at some point. And so nobody is judging people for not knowing this stuff, but it's just kind of the basics. I always say just start with, getting a filtration system on your water or drinking different water. I like this water, Alive waters that I can order to the house. I take very gingerly showers, but I also have Jolie has a really nice shower filter that I love. A lot of people and they love it. Your hair feels different. Your skin feels different. Stop using toxic deodorants because of, like I said, all the lymph nodes that you have in your underarms, how it can block it, even if it's aluminum free. And I know that people say all the time, well, I can't find a good one or one that I like. If you are well detoxed, you know that you won't have odor in your underarms. And so the more we can just kind of get free of all these things, those are my go-to beginner 101s of detoxing.
Yeah, 100%. I know years ago I did a pit detox, which was yeah, and then baking soda, just to kind of mop up the actual sweat, when I was out and about, because I was traveling a lot at the time. I didn't want to offend my my fellow travelers.
Yeah.
But absolutely. Yeah. And then it got to a point where there was no odor at all. I might sweat, but it didn't stink. So, and sweating is good for us. We want to be sweating. That's
I thought not sweating all those years. I was like, aren't I lucky? I don't even really sweat. That's not a good thing. So now I do infrared sauna about 3 times a week. I do everything I can. I mean, I would work out, but I just didn't sweat as much. But it's not a good. We only have so many detoxification pathways, and we need to utilize all of them.
Absolutely. Yeah, sweat, ladies. Come on.
Okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right, Amanda, we have reached the end of our podcast where I ask every single one of our guests 8 rapid fire questions. Those questions are designed to help us learn a little bit more about who you are and get us kind of out of this headspace of medical speak and, information overload. So, Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Number 1, if you could choose only one natural remedy for the rest of your life, what would it be?
That's tough. But I would say, like I just mentioned, probably castor oil, because I feel like it really works quickly and effectively and for so many different things. So
awesome.
Castor oil.
Tell us something most people don't know about you.
Well, in 2020, right as COVID was starting, I was looking to shift gears, right? Because of what was happening. I didn't feel like I could work in plastic surgery anymore. So I really wanted to go to law school, constitutional law. But I ultimately decided to get my health coaching certification because I felt like I could help more people faster by doing that. I don't necessarily love lawyers. Sorry. But I love strategy and I do not like to see injustice. And so I'm
Mhm.
very passionate about that. In fact, if you look at my birth chart, my 10th house, which is career, is Libra and Virgo in the
Hmm.
10th house. And so we know Libra's balancing of the scales and Libra's beauty, and Virgo is perfectionistic. So, perfectionistic beauty industry, I was supposed to work in justice and workaholic. It really does speak to who I am. So,
That's awesome. Very interesting. If I were to compile a playlist of happy music, what song would you suggest be added?
I love music. I love all different types of music. I love R&B, but I really love Angus and Julia Stone. It's mellow, but I love it.
Mhm.
Big Jet Plane is a really great song.
Awesome. I'll have to add it. Awesome. What's your favorite guilty pleasure?
Okay, I'm going to be in trouble for this, but it's true. Gummy candies. But I don't do it all the time because, again, not good for you. Or I will occasionally bend the rules and have a root beer.
Mm. Yeah, root beer actually was at one time very, very healthy for us, used as a health tonic. So
Yeah,
no longer,
yeah, I
unfortunately.
know. But every once in a while, you kind of just need it. Like, so I'm being real.
Yeah, no judgment at all. What is the most influential book you've ever read?
Hmm. I don't know if I've ever read, but I know like read recently, and that would be Joe Dispenza, Becoming Supernatural.
Nice.
I think it's
Yeah,
so applicable to what's going on now. And I think that humans have always had the ability to have supernatural gifts. But, we've had a lot of things that have interfered with that, if you will. And I think
Mhm.
some of us are getting back to it. And like my manifestation powers are supernatural.
Absolutely. I love that. I actually just did a hashtag post with becoming supernatural today. So
Really? You're
I
kidding.
did.
How
Yeah.
cool. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I've read Becoming Supernatural, but more recently I went back to Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza as well. So
Awesome.
yeah,
He's
very
great.
cool. What does the word revolution mean to you?
Well, it's when a group of people challenge the status quo. It's rebellious, and I'm rebellious, and I'm a disruptor, always have been. Yeah, I think it's what's happening in the beauty industry and all over the world. I think we're having like mini revolutions everywhere.
And what does the word remedy mean to you?
Remedy to me is something that soothes or alleviates. I like
Absolutely.
soothe. I like the word soothe.
It's a nice word. And lastly, if you could impart one piece of wisdom onto our listeners, what would that be?
I have so much wisdom that I've learned the hard way. I would say if there was only one thing, it would be trust your inner voice
Mm.
because that you can apply to any situation every day. My friend Claudia Mason and I have started to go and do teen talks for teens. She was a supermodel. She now is a life coach. I have the beauty industry background. I'm a health coach. And we just want to be there for younger women to say, you don't have to get caught up in the societal pressure and the social media pressure that's here now. She's remained totally natural. We both had mothers who really enforced that with us. I took a little detour, but I'm back. And it's really been well received. And I think we're going to do more and more of them. We did a nice
Mhm.
girls in September, and they were so sweet and came up after us afterwards and hugged us and said how much they appreciated it. So that's how I feel good.
I think that's beautiful. So many of our young girls, especially, really need really strong mentors. So I applaud you for what you're doing there because that's where it begins, right? Like when we're able to affect change in our young people, then we affect change in all of society. So
100%. I couldn't agree.
yeah, Amanda, it has been such a pleasure. So, if people want to connect with you, they can go to the Holistic Beauty Coach on Instagram.
Mhm.
And connect with you there. I believe you have a link tree there with all of your various links. And anything else I can send people to?
No, for right now, that's fine. I am going to start consulting with women one-on-one, coaching them to prepare for their explant surgery. I can help them before and afterwards. It was something that I was just slowly doing with our patients, and it took up so much of my time, and I loved every minute of it. I love these women, and I'm trying to do various entrepreneurial ventures on my own, but I advocate, Amanda, there's such a need for this in the world. And I have women from all over the world following me. So I said, you know what, I will make time each week to help women. And, or if you just, it's a conversation too, it might just be like an hour of just finding out options or hearing about my experience. So they can also, you'll see it in my link tree, email me at theholisticbeautycoach@gmail.com if they're interested on one-on-one coaching.
Well, Amanda, it has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for listening. Y'all take care. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Erin.
With hope as a guiding light, through darkest days we'll fight the night. With a whole lot of passion, with a whole lot of truth, Remedy Revolution is here for you.